Proverbs chapter 2, verses 3 through 6. Furthermore, if you call out to insight and lift your voice to understanding, if you seek it like silver and search for it like hidden treasure, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and discover the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. My name is Larry. I try to make videos that stress wisdom over hype, conviction over comfort, clarity over noise, and where faith meets real life. Proverbs chapters 2 through 4 is full of teaching on how we can grow to be wise. It begins with a paradox. A paradox in the Bible is something that on the surface seems like a contradiction, but is nevertheless true. The paradox here is that on one hand, wisdom is something we should seek. Lady Wisdom says in chapter 1, verses 20 and 21, "How long, inexperienced ones, will you love ignorance? How long will you mockers enjoy mocking and you fools hate knowledge? If you respond to my warning, then I will pour out my spirit on you and teach you my words." And then here in chapter 2, verse 3, it says we're to call out for insight, call out for wisdom. But then after verses 3 and 4 calls us to do all this seeking, like we were searching for silver and a hidden treasure, it says. Then verse 6 says, the Lord gives wisdom. It's a gift. Which is it? And as Tim and Kathy Keller points out, this idea runs through the whole Bible. Philippians 2, verses 12 and 13, calls us to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Work it out. Okay? Effort on our part again. But then Philippians goes on to say, for it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill his good purpose. So what's going on here? What's going on is the wisdom of the paradox. The paradox itself is wisdom. If it were all up to us to become wise, we would forever remain foolish. Because we can't do anything on our own. We'd try and fail, we'd get all anxious about it, and eventually just give up if we're all up to us. God could just give us wisdom without any effort on our part. But if he did it that way, we wouldn't have the initiative to seek wisdom. And so the paradox gives us the right amount of initiative, the right amount of effort on our part, and the assurance from God that if we pursue wisdom and knowledge throughout our whole lives, God will give it to us. So you need to go after wisdom. Do whatever you have to do to get it. And then be patient. Because if you pursue wisdom, God will give it to you as a gift according to his perfect timing. So you want to pray for the opportunity to do whatever God has called you to do and the desire to do it. So when it's accomplished, you have to admit that it was all from God. God requires our all-out effort. And it's in that struggle for wisdom that we grow into the likeness of King Jesus. Utter brilliance, the way it works. Now let's look at what Proverbs means about the righteous and the wicked. Proverbs 2, verses 20 through 22 say, "So follow the way of the good and keep to the paths of the righteous, for the upright will inhabit the land, and those of integrity will remain in it. But the wicked will be cut off from the land, and the treacherous ripped out of it." We tend to think that the words righteous and wicked mean moral and immoral, but that's only part of it. It means much more than that. The Hebrew words zedek and mishpat have strong social implications for our culture and our society. Bruce Walker has one of my favorite quotes about wisdom in Proverbs. Here's what he writes: "The righteous are willing to disadvantage themselves to advantage the community. The wicked are willing to disadvantage the community to advantage themselves." Let me say that again. The righteous are willing to disadvantage themselves to advantage the community, but the wicked are willing to disadvantage the community in order to advantage themselves. That's because the righteous know that they don't own anything. Everything we have comes from God. It all belongs to Him. Not just part of it, but all of it. And what does God want us to do with what He's given us? He wants us to love our neighbor, to do what's best for others, even if it's at the expense of what we think is best for us. The wicked don't think that way at all. They think what they have belongs to them. And so they're going to do what's best for themselves. The wicked are always looking out for number one: me, me, me. If you read Proverbs with the right understanding of righteous and wicked, it becomes a whole new book, a life-changing book. It will lead you to a truly righteous life, a life of justice, and a commitment to do what's right for others. It will also make you more like King Jesus, who did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. Mark 10:45. So in what ways are you disadvantaging yourself with your time, your money, your service, for the good of the community you live in? Pray that the Lord will help you use your time, your money, and your opportunities that all came from God for the good of those He has placed around you. It'll be hard because all around us people are only concerned with themselves and that they don't owe anyone anything. So there's a lot of cultural pressure there to do that, to think that way. But they're wrong. They're dead wrong. Finally, let's look at how to become wise by what Proverbs teaches us about how to treat others. In Proverbs chapter 1, verses 10, 11, and also verse 15, it says this: My son, if sinners entice you, don't be persuaded. If they say, come with us, let's set an ambush and kill someone. Let's attack some innocent person just for fun. My son, don't travel that road with them or set foot on their path. From Proverbs chapter 1, verse 8 through verse 19, we have parents warning their son or daughter against living a life of violence. Now, depending on the community you live in, you might think that's relevant for you or not. If you live somewhere where there is a lot of violence, it means something to you. But if you don't, then you might be prone to think this isn't about you, it's for someone else, so you'll just ignore these words. But not so fast. This has much broader meaning than just physical violence. Proverbs knows that we all have the potential to be cruel. So as I'm recording this video, matter of fact, there's a manhunt going on to find the assassin who shot and killed Charlie Kirk. It's in all the news, and it's hit a nerve in this nation like I haven't seen in many, many years. And we'll see who this monster of a cruel person is. But I am reminded of how many times I've heard reporters interview the neighbors of killers or bombers, and the neighbor says something like, oh, but he came from such a good family, or he seemed like such a nice young man. You've heard that. As the Kellers write, the Bible never assumes that family pedigree is any insurance against evil. Neither is being nice. It also doesn't teach us that it's only the poor and disadvantaged who are prone to violence, are prone to being cruel to others. Amos chapter 2, verse 7, the prophet Amos says this: they trample the heads of the poor on the dust of the ground and obstruct the path of the needy. The prophet Amos, in his plain-spoken way, is talking about the affluent people of Israel who are being cruel to the poor and needy because of their selfishness. Van Leeuwen, in his commentary on Proverbs, says that your upper-class children might be tempted to join a firm whose profits rest on the exploitation of workers, on the destruction of the environment, or on success at the expense of justice and truth. That's what he writes. In my first career, I was a stockbroker, financial advisor. Did that for about 20 to 25 years, and I trained on Wall Street. Saw a lot of greed, saw a lot of exploitation, saw a lot of crooked executives doing whatever they had to do to chase the almighty dollar, to get rich, no matter who got hurt along the way. Saw a lot of that. So we should all ask ourselves, in what way am I participating in something that might benefit me, but at the expense of being cruel to someone else? we should heed the warning of the writer of Hebrews. Hebrews 3:13 says, you must warn each other every day while it is still today, so that none of you will be deceived by sin and hardened against God. A heart that's hardened against other people is a heart that's hardened against God. Well, that's enough for today. In the next video, I'll continue the subject on how do we become wise by talking about how you can only develop wisdom through experience, although it has nothing to do with age. Until then, go now in grace and peace.